We're-
Okay, oops, looks like we're live. We are live. It's a good thing I happened to notice we were live. I was happy just hanging out with you. So I believe we are live now. Hi, everybody. I'm Carol Kaufman. I'm the founder of the Institute of Coaching with Margaret Moore and Susan David. And I'm also now a senior leadership advisor at Egon Zender. And I am here with Julie Carrier, who's the founder of the Leadership Development Institute for Young Women. And her history is interesting. She's done a whole bunch of things. But when she was a fairly young woman in her 20s plus, after crafting her own major in college, she wound up working at the Pentagon. And the program that she's going to describe here and today was really based on a lot of that work, which was a neuroscience, evidence based leadership development for executives. Julie, could you describe now just a bit about your program and your vision with young women?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Carol. It's an honor to be here and share about this mission. We are really helping to redefine what education can look like. So essentially what we're doing is we're taking those same evidence-based coaching principles and practices that are normally reserved for executives in the C-suite. We're tailoring them and we're actually bringing them into high school classrooms led by certified in-school faculty coaches, where we're actually helping girls and young people during their most formative years of development. And it's a game changer for these students. As we know as adults, it's great, but for young people, I think it's even more powerful.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm wondering, so guys, the I was very impressed with Julie's program. I've actually seen the curriculum, like all 300 pages, and it's very, very good. Then she sent me what you're about to see, and it really just completely ignited and blew me away. So we're going to share this video now, and I'd like you to remember these girls are 14 years old. They are freshmen in high school. Is that right? And when
That's
it
right.
says they graduate in 2025, they're talking about high school. So do you want to introduce it? So it's around 4 minutes long and it's riveting.
Mhm. Yeah, so essentially, we're really grateful to have what we call our 4-minute mile school. Many people are familiar with the idea that everyone said a 4-minute mile was impossible until one person did it. So we're honored to actually be partnering with St. Ursula Academy in Toledo, Ohio, as the school that's showing education what's possible, what actually happens when you bring evidence-based leader development curriculum and actually give it the same level of respect and intentionality as any other subject. So just like students go to their math and their science class, they go to their applied neuroscience leadership class and get coaching 5 days a week for 9 weeks every single year of their high school career. So this is just a small snapshot of the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at the leadership program, there are so many skills that the girls will be learning that are integral to the leadership program. Self-confidence, their public speaking skills, courage, resilience, growth mindset, which is something at St. Ursula Academy we have continued to focus on for years. We can always learn and grow, and having that kind of mindset is key to growth in the future.
We are thrilled with the outcomes of the program. The girls' confidence is really increased with the freshmen who've taken the class. The other thing is that their friendships are stronger and they've been able to connect with girls they would maybe not have initially connected with. The other thing that has really soared is the growth mindset. This means that girls see potential in their friendships, they see potential in their learning, and they see potential in themselves. And wow, that's a game changer.
Self-confidence is a big part that I learned. I mean, that doesn't just go for presenting, but that's just in life in general. And I think that's helped me to set goals for myself and what I want to do, and truly helped me to live the life that I want to.
I can take what I've learned in leadership to all my other classes. I can use it with time management, with homework.
The public speaking skills that I learned were not to be nervous, because it's okay if you mess up, we're all human.
Something that surprised me that I learned about leadership was that you don't have to lead from a position of power. You can lead from your character or what you really believe in instead of like what others believe in.
I think it's helped me grow as a person. My confidence, not anymore, but it was really down there. Like I didn't have very good self-confidence, but this class helped me realize that like my self-worth and that I can do anything anyone else can do.
So you have to start with yourself first and focus on developing yourself and your own skills and abilities before you go on to help other people. I always thought, oh, I need to help people like right away, but if I don't know who I am first, I'm not going to be as successful with helping other people too.
On my soccer team, I have been able to use my leadership skills. I used to be like really quiet on the field, and in soccer you're supposed to communicate, so I can definitely use the leadership skills to find my like courage to talk.
I learned to use my leadership skills by including everybody, but also speaking up. So when I had questions, not being afraid to go ask somebody older, because if I spoke my opinion and was confident about it, they would be respectful and confident back.
Anyone can be a leader, even if I am in the back of a room. Just by being present and being active in the class, I can be a leader. You just have to have the positive mindset and the strive to be there and do it.
Being a leader from the back of the room means that we can like lead anywhere. You can be silent and be a leader. You can be up front and be a leader. Anywhere you are, you're a leader in your own specific ways, and nobody can tell you that you can and can't be a leader.
When people used to ask me what I wanted to be, I wasn't completely sure, but now I know that I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be a CEO, I want to be a businesswoman, and I just want to live a happy, fulfilled lifetime.
I'd really like to be in the sciences, engineering. I love space. I love to work at NASA. That's one of my biggest goals in life.
They started out quiet, and as the weeks went on, the relationships built between all of us in the room, you can see the girls really start to be able to just be themselves and be open to who they are.
That's the most powerful thing about the program, is that you are shifting a mindset. You're shifting a vision. You're saying, I don't have to look this way or speak this way or have this background. I can lead from where I'm at, from a point of view of my character and what I value.
The leadership program for St. Ursula Academy is so incredibly exciting to develop leaders during the academic school day in a way that marries our commitment to academic excellence and development of the whole person. It's just thrilling.
Taking the class again sophomore year is something that I'm really looking forward to, because this class we worked on self-leadership, and I'm excited to also work on leadership of others, to learn how I can help lead in a group setting or in my teams or in projects that I have to work in a group.
That's amazing.
Amazing. And what's so interesting is many of these students, when they first started their leadership program, they were terrified to speak in front of others. Some, would, cry before they get up to talk. And at the end, because they now know more of who they are, their inherent worth, it's not just about teaching them about leadership. It's about teaching them to see themselves as leaders, which was a big theme you probably heard.
That's amazing to see these 14-year-olds talk like, MBA students. Them like learning this language so young. So I'd love to, for you to kind of sort of make some more comments and questions about this. Before we do, I want to get a little bit personal, which is Julie. We just recently Julie gave a talk at the Global Forum on Girls' Education. Everyone was blown away. But what I didn't know until you were sharing was that you experienced something when you were about this age that changed you. So do you want to share with people about that? Because they just think, you've always been comfortable leading from the front, et cetera.
Yes, I think it's so interesting. We all go through, different moments or seasons or turning points in life. And I want to thank you again for your support of this movement, Carol. We would not be doing this work in this way with this impact had it not been for you and your continued support and advice and guidance. You probably heard a lot of your own leadership teachings and how students were defining leadership as collaborative and internal and character-based. So Thank you. Related to your question, so I like to share this with girls too, because one of the challenges of leader development is young people see these picture perfect images of leaders and think that success magically happens, or that if you are a leader, that means your life is technically perfect and you never make mistakes. But we want our girls and young people to understand that leadership is messy, and the growth to knowing who you are and becoming who you are is hard and full of challenges and mistakes and messing up. And so I actually show a picture of me in high school when I had a growth disorder and I had a voice that was so high, people would make fun of me, and I couldn't even raise my hand in class. And it was interesting because I started to get the message that my voice didn't matter. And it was one person that actually came to speak at our school. And interestingly enough, he was using applied neuroscience, and I don't think he knew that's what he was doing. Instead of just talking with us, he actually shifted our mindset. So I went from being a student who walked into the assembly room, hunched over, feeling like my voice didn't matter, feeling really worthless, after that experience where he was talking about we deserve the best, and he was actually wearing a tuxedo saying that he's wearing his best because we deserve the best. That shifted my mindset to realize that I'm not someone that life happens to, that I'm someone that can lead my own life. And that idea of self-leadership, the first person that we lead is ourselves, that actually means that everyone is a leader and has the capacity to use those leadership skills. So I went from a kid who couldn't raise my hand in class to a kid who started her own business at 14, hired my friends, got thousands of dollars in scholarships to go to college, ran for senior class vice president. It's really powerful. And you know this as one of the world's top coaches. If you try to shift behavior, it's hard. But if you can shift a mindset and how someone sees themselves, that changes everything. So that's how I got very passionate about this idea of how do we shift mindsets so that young people can ultimately be who they're meant to be.
That's wonderful. And we all know how hard that is. Just a stray question. What business did you start when you were 14?
Oh yeah, so I loved art. Art was one of my anchors that I could put like, hey, I'm at least good at this. And so I ended up perfecting this technique called the millefeuille technique from ancient Greece. I was a bit of a nerd, I'll admit, and I ended up making these beautiful beads and jewelry that ended up becoming an award-winning bead artist at 16. So a lot of random facts, but it's really important that kids know what they can anchor to. Every young person is good at something.
So at the Institute, a lot of us are very interested in research. And on one hand, it's easy for these kids to kind of use this language, etc. But you're also really looking at this in an evidence-based way. So I'm wondering if you could share some of the research that you're using, the research tools that you're using. Tell us about that and the outcomes.
Absolutely. Well, and again, thank you for all of your support in this. It is evidence-based. It's rigorously measured, statistically significant increases in growth mindset. And the reason we're able to have a lot of these really what some are calling extraordinary outcomes is because we are leveraging applied neuroscience. We are leveraging positive psychology. We are leveraging wise psychological interventions and extraordinary research like Dr. Richard Boyatz's intentional change theory. So what students experience as a leadership lesson, again, it's really put down to their level. The volume of research behind it is actually extraordinary. That 300-page manual for year one, many of the pages are actually citations. One study, or one, I should say, exercise alone, it is a 10-minute writing reflection, is backed by over 190 published studies, of which some say that there's outcomes that are correlated even 3 years later with increased grades and health outcomes. So this is not some fluffy, feel good, just go in there and hope you be a leader. This is the most rigorous evidence-based leader development program for young women or young people that's out there, because we take the best of the best, like you talk about at the Institute of Coaching, which is really your purpose and mission, and we actually tailor that and bring it into high schools.
Now, can you tell us about some of the actual research measures you've taken where you've looked at before and after?
Yes.
Because one thing that made me very happy about your program, and I know I nagged you a bit about it, was to have it be an ongoing research study as well. So why don't you share a little bit with people about how you are measuring this impact And what's interesting about it too, guys, is to also think about some of these measures that we can use for before and after with our coaching clients.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So there's a quite a rigorous evaluation that's set up for the program that starts with pre and post. We've had control groups or treatment group studies. So I'll share one of them. So the one that's especially significant, especially for young women, is the one on growth mindset. We really wanted to see. We know the research tells us that growth mindset is actually a learned skill, that you have to learn how to have a growth mindset. We kind of default to having a fixed mindset, especially given our socialization and conditioning. So what would actually happen if we try to account for as many measures as we can, we really see if this was the course or if it was something else. So we actually have an amazing data research team that's headed by Dr. Christina Kalina, an extraordinary expert that worked with Dr. Richard Lerner, the foremost expert in positive youth development, who's heading up this research. And when we actually looked at the scores of the ninth graders who were in the group versus the ninth graders who were not, versus the 10th graders who were didn't have this experience, we actually were able to isolate that really these results, these extraordinary increases in growth mindset, had to be the course, because the growth mindset scores of the 10th graders were actually lower than the ninth graders. And that's understandable because guess what? They never had the training on how to shift their mindset. So it was actually very exciting to see how even just a 9-week experience can have longitudinal shifts in growth mindset. So that's one example. We have another study on self-efficacy. So we were able to show statistically significant increases in self-efficacy, even though it normally goes down for ninth graders as they get older. It actually went up for the students in the program. So not just that, but we have a lot of student stories. I care about data. We know that's important, but it's the stories from the classroom, from our coaches, that literally bring me to tears. Students who felt like outcasts, who feel like they wouldn't speak because of their accent, embracing who they are, now teaching their peers Portuguese and giving half of their speeches in Portuguese in the class. It's just, the stories are really great at validating the research because it's working, but I care most about the frontline feedback from our coaches. So I think we can talk more about the data, but there's a lot. So I was like, how do we cram 5 years of study into one conversation?
Right. But what I find really powerful is the combination. When I was reading some of the stories of what these girls said, it's very compelling. And then to see that in the context of the data. So one of our people is asking how you measured growth mindset. And some people may not know exactly what it is. Another person was asking about resiliency. So maybe you could just talk a little bit more about those two things.
Absolutely. So there's a number of different scales for growth mindset. In my opinion, the gold standard is the one actually authored by Dr. Carol Dweck herself. So we actually use Dr. Dweck's scale on growth mindset. There's a number of other really validated and reliable instruments that we use. The general self-efficacy scale. There's a leader identity scale. There's actually quite a lot of scales. In fact, one of the pieces of feedback from our students is, oh my gosh, there's too many surveys, but we think more data is better than not enough, because if we're going to change education, one of the ways that we can do that is by sharing the evidence. And so that's why it's been so integral in our program.
So so use the Carol Dweck. I know you've done a bunch of other things. So did you look at resilience at all, or how would you think about that for these girls?
You know, I need to invite Dr. Kalina onto our call, because she is really heading up that effort with all of the different surveys and the instruments and the administration of that. I do know that there is a resiliency scale. We're considering integrating that into our program for year 2, because that's a big theme for the next unit. We haven't really vetted it yet, but there's some good ones out there.
Although I should think that the self-efficacy one would basically predict that. So do you want to describe a little bit? Do you remember any of the details of that scale? Because that's such I mean, you think of these girls that, you know, as they go through high school and they are subjected to all these images, as you said, a lot of them actually get less confident as the year goes on. And these girls are getting more confident and more of a sense of self-efficacy.
And actually, while we're on that topic, I'd love to highlight, because this is actually valuable for all coaches, not just coaches or people who care about young people. But this idea of leader identity, I find, is one of the most missing elements in evidence-based leader development. Why? Because we know that people make choices in alignment with how they see themselves. So you can teach anyone the most extraordinary world-class skills and leadership development capabilities. But if they don't see themselves as a leader, their research actually shows they're not going to use a lot of those leadership capabilities. And so really taking time to shift someone's narrative of what leadership is essential. And that's crucial, especially when working with women who've been socialized not just for decades, but literally for hundreds of years, that we're not leaders. So this idea of painting a different vision of what is leadership? Is leadership really standing behind a podium and telling people what to do? Believe it or not, I know that sounds crazy to us, but there are many people that have that outdated command and control vision of leadership, shifting to this character-based leadership model, this idea that you can lead from who you are as a person in your character instead of a title or position of authority, that leadership is independent of that positional power. These are the things that really shift mindsets in young women and women as well, so that they can see themselves as leaders, so that they can start to use those leadership capabilities.
You know, it's interesting. One of our people, Kevin McGovern, hi, Kevin, thank you. He said, first of all, he says it's amazing work, as a number of other people have. And he said, curious about adult development theory and how it might apply to these ages and their stage of development. Do you feel they're coming into a more informed, welcoming environment, and basically overcoming a socialized mindset to a self-authored mindset? That seems quite, that's astute, because that seems quite at the core of what you're doing.
It really is. And I think what's interesting is very, very early in the beginning, when they're exposed to a leader, and we do a lot of focus on female leadership, they see the whole picture of that leader. They see the messes, the successes, the mistakes, so that they're starting to realize, oh gosh, I make mistakes. I'm not perfect either. I can do that someday. And that's shifting their internal narrative of them actually being the leader of their own life, the author of what's possible for their future. And that's why we're seeing these really seemingly radical transformations of students who would never raise their hand in class to then standing up at the end of their 9 weeks, giving a like presentation about something they're passionate about to a standing ovation. So it's not about teaching public speaking skills, it's about teaching internal, authentic confidence skills, so these girls can embody that wherever they're at.
Yeah, well, you're not exactly talking about public speaking tips. What you're talking about is really from the inside out, like them getting a sense of knowing who they are. That little girl with the braces, like, oh my goodness, this little teeny thing talking about I can be a leader from the back of the room. Really, really amazing. So I have a question that I've been thinking about. This won't be an easy one. And guys, I'd be interested in your comments as well. What do you think does it? There's clearly, I mean, I've seen the before and after, and I'm not a fan of your work because I love you. I've actually seen the work and seen some of the data, and it's sort of, it changed my mind. I mean, when you started out, they're like, oh, great, girls, how nice. Now it's like, whoa, this is like filling the pipeline of talent. These people will be graduated from college in 2029. So it's like in 2030, these girls are going to be out in the world. What is your sense of what is unlocking this? Because there's a very significant difference, because what they're like coming in and coming out.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, as you know, this has been a long learning journey. This has been my life's work for 15 years. And then in terms of bringing it into education, you've been an integral part of this for the last 5. And it isn't easy. And sometimes it didn't work. And so really isolating all those factors of what didn't work and what did, we are beyond grateful to have St. Ursula Academy, because their own vision of what would work helped to shift my perspective of what was most going to work in a classroom environment. So in fact, it was Mary Werner, who's the president, and Nicole Flores, who's the principal, that said, Julie, this is so important. We don't want this as an afterthought in homeroom. We don't want this once every couple of weeks. This is so important. This is what our girls need most. We want this every day. And in fact, rather than having it as, basically, an afterthought, it was a graded class with rigorous homework that is on their transcript. So when students come into this experience, they're giving it the same level of mental respect as a calculus class, as a philosophy class, or a psychology class. So that mindset of the student of, oh, wow, this is so important. I need to bring my best to this space, instead of, it's just an afterthought. The other thing is making it every day. So when it was once a week, when it was once every other week, we did see increases in a number of really important factors. But those increases compared to an everyday experience where it's compounded over time has been dramatically, I think the missing link, making it every day and making it an intentional class, so that all students, even those students that don't see themselves as a leader, who would never sign up for an after-school leadership program or apply to a special leadership experience over the summer, all students, every single one, even that quietest girl in the room, gets to have this leadership development. That was also another key.
Yeah, because as I'm thinking about it, one is what you did by that is you sort of raised the stakes for the girls. I know there's about 10% that come in kicking and screaming and go, I don't want to do this. This is a bunch of malarkey, but I have to do it because I'm getting graded. And some of those wind up having incredible turnarounds. And I like those stories in a way almost the best.
I actually have, it's really I don't know if we have time. It's a very small snapshot of that idea. So I actually printed it off because it was so meaningful. And you're right, about 10% of the students, they don't want to be there at first. They think that this is so outside of what they're used to. They actually fight against the class in the beginning. They come around actually, and they actually become some of the students that have had the biggest outcomes. So this sweet girl was one of them who did not want to be there. And she said, thank you for helping me find myself. Before this class, I was just a girl with a bad attitude who hated everything and was less than excited to start this class. But you changed that. This is a letter she wrote to her coach, by the way. This is actually what a teenager took the time to write to her coach. She said, throughout this course, you have taught me to be myself, to step outside my comfort zone. You've pushed me to try things beyond what I thought I could do. You helped me become more optimistic about my future and excited about not just the weeks and days ahead, but the years to come. Before, I never really thought about what I wanted, but now I know. I recognize these goals. I'm going to carry them with me for years until I meet them all, because you taught me to persevere and never give up.
Wow. I mean, and also, I mean, there's so many levels that's impressive. One is the shift to mindset. One is her capacity to attach. One, quite frankly, is just the vocabulary. I mean, it's hard for people to learn a leadership and an intangible vocabulary. But I really see that, you've raised the stakes. You really have done things to help increase their self-efficacy. Along with that, a growth mindset. And I also know that you didn't mention it, that you have a number of positive psychology exercises in there as well. I can't believe how quickly the time has gone. Some people, I just have to interrupt. Jamie Dander McKinney said, chills. I love it. That's great, Jamie. And people are saying, how can they be involved in this? How can they learn about it? And, it is just getting started. Yeah. Right now, it's only offered in a couple of places, and we want this to be a movement that's available to the underprivileged, underserved, et cetera. I know that's on your vision list. What's the email address where people can reach out to you and contact you?
Thank you. So I would say that one of the best places to go is the Leadership Development Institute for Young Women's website. So it's LDIYW.com. That has, or you can email Julie at Girls Lead.
Thank you. I'm like, seriously?
If you want to learn more, obviously.
I love you. I'm not going to remember that. It took me like writing it down. Julie at girlslead.com.
And that's,
there's a number of people that are interested in learning more about this, seeing how they could bring it to things and learn more. Anyway, why don't you just sum up what this has done to you as the leader of this? We just have about a minute.
Yes, what it's done for me, really, and we know the protege effect, you can't help but teach these things and then it shifts you and changes you yourself. We found that in our coaches as well as our students teaching this content. It changed my life. I would say that I no longer have a conditional self-esteem. I mean, you know me back in the day, Carol, I was really, I mean, I was a recovering perfectionist. I mean, there's so many things. I've become a better person, a stronger leader in doing this work. And I will say, Carol, the power of coaching, having your coaching in my own life, trying to shift the education system and also shift my own mindset has been integral to this entire movement. So thank you.
You are welcome. So everybody, thanks. Make some comments on the LinkedIn. Contact Julie at girlslead.com. And there's a lot more to go, you know, offering it to more places, increasing the diversity. So all of you, if you know some education programs that you think might be open to that, let us know. So we're at the half hour. We'll be cut off at some point. So Julie, thank you very much for this work. I was one of the people who thought it was interesting, and now I find it compelling, very compelling.
Well, thank you for helping it become what it's become. It is a movement, and it is changing lives and hearts in significant ways. It's a privilege.
So thank you.
All right, thank you.